Hi, welcome to yet another episode of Polygraph with our political editor DK Singh. On Thursday, we saw how while the BJP went all out to celebrate PM Modi's birthday, it did get some sort of a jolt when one of its oldest allies, SAD, they opted out of the government. Harsimrat Kaur Badal, she decided to submit her resignation. Well, what exactly does it mean for national politics as well as Punjab politics? And at the same time, will they continue to stay with the NDA? Is a question that everyone wants to know, sir.
Okay, first let me answer the second question. Sukhveer Badal in a late night press conference actually has said that he will first meet the core committee of the party and then take a call on this. So as it is, Shiromani Akali Dal is very much part of the NDA. Coming to your first question about how all this happened, let me tell you an old story.
Right.
Once I was in Jaipur covering Lalu Yadav's press conference, and he spoke a lot against multinationals and attacking the center for its, pro-MNC policies and all that. And after the press conference got over, he started having Coca-Cola. So somebody pointed it out to him. Well, what are you doing? You have just spoken against MNCs.
And now
he says, "ये पिएंगे नहीं तो खत्म कैसे करेंगे? And if you don't drink, how will you finish it?" So I just recall this because we are talking about the hypocrisy of our political class. It's like the Congress Constitution saying that you can be a member of the Congress only if you are not having alcohol, you don't have alcohol, and only if you are a habitual weaver of khadi. Who does that? It's full of hypocrisy, and that's what you're witnessing in this particular case also. Now, every time you have a parliament session, almost every year, session after session, you have all these parties talking about farmers' interests, they're talking about suicide by farmers, and when the discussions start in parliament, you hardly see anybody, 10 members, 15 members, 20 members, nobody is interested. So you just make a rhetorical point and leave. In this case, what has happened, now the three bills. Now these three bills, farm sector bills, are pretty important, and it's important for all of us, as a consumer and as taxpayers. Now, farm sector, as we know, as it is, if and all of us know that if a farmer is paying, say, is getting 2 rupees, 3 rupees a kg for his tomato or for his onion, we are paying 30 rupees, 40 rupees per kg. Where does the money go?
The gap.
The gap. The producer is not getting anything, consumer is paying much more. So this entire food supply chain is so imbalanced and so, I would say, completely idiotic. Nobody is looking into it. So these three ordinances for which the bills were brought. So I'll just actually focus on the some larger points which these bills actually seek to address. See, first, the farmers don't have to go to a mandi to sell his produce. A farmer doesn't have to sell it to a particular person or within your state, or in the mandi, within a state also you're not allowed. You have to sell only in the mandi. Now what this bill proposes, that a farmer can sell his produce at any place. Outside the mandi, at his house, at some trader's house. The barriers for interstate or intrastate trade of agricultural produce, they are proposed to be removed. So that gives a huge leverage to farmers. First, you get your price for the produce because you can sell it anywhere. Traders also get leverage. They can go to the farmer's door, negotiate the price. It's good for them. Another bill talks about contract farming. Now we know how farmers struggle when you go for sowing of the crops. Right. How you struggle, you don't have the input cost. You start borrowing. When contract farming, say with an exporter or a agri-business person, agri-entrepreneur, you enter into a contract at a prefixed price.
Right.
Fine, I am going to sow potatoes. At the end of it, this is what I am going to get from my produce. And that company or the exporter, an individual, gives an advance to farmers also. It makes life easier for farmers. I saw it in West Bengal, even during the left rule. Like I went to one of the villages there, and farmers were actually cultivating potatoes for frito-lays. It was working very well. Farmers were happy because they didn't have to bother about the money that they were getting, and at the end of it, what price they will be getting. That uncertainty was gone. Then you have the third bill, which talks about removing certain, removing cereals, pulses, oil seeds, certain commodities from the list of Essential Commodities Act.
Okay.
So there will be no stock holding limits. What it will result in is, and all the three put together, is the private sector will enter the agriculture market. And it's essential for farmers because that will get them a better price. What is happening today is why you are witnessing so much of noise from Punjab and Haryana is because farmers have been given to understand
That MSP.
that it's just the beginning, and this minimum support price that they get for their produce will be dismantled later. When private players come, initially private players will give them good money, but after they get the monopoly, the farmers would be basically forced into agreeing to get lesser prices.
Right.
So all these misconceptions are there. And that's how our farmers' bodies came together, the protests started. And coming to the hypocrisy of our political class, these ordinances were cleared by the Union Cabinet, of which Harsimrat Badal, the minister who has resigned now, she was very much part of the cabinet.
Right.
We did not hear much from Shiromani Akali Dal then. Then last month, Captain Amrinder Singh, the Punjab Chief Minister, he wrote to the centre opposing these ordinances.
Mm-hmm.
After that, Nayan Singh Tomar, the Union Agriculture Minister, he wrote back, and you saw Sukhbir Badal, the Shiromani Akali Dal President, reading out Tomar's letter. Look, MSP regime will not be dismantled, everything is fine, so he was trying to reassure the farmers. And suddenly you see all players changing their stances. So it's not just about Amrinder Singh. The Congress, for instance, in its election manifesto, Congress had spoken about replacing the Essential Commodities Act with an enabling law which will not be compulsory, which will be used only in emergency cases. It had talked about removing all those trade barriers, inter-state trade barriers, and now Congress has taken a different line in Parliament. That's why I'm talking about this hypocrisy. And that's the background for this resignation by the Assad minister in the government.
We're getting a lot of questions. We'll start with a few. Aritra Bose wants to know, why are these protests mainly concentrated in Punjab and Haryana and not other regions? And Saurabh wants to know, what exactly are these guys protesting in the Farm Bill?
Okay, it's very interesting. It's not in other regions. You would expect this to happen in Maharashtra. Maharashtra also have a very strong farmers' bodies actually.
Right.
But they're all supporting it. And interestingly, in Maharashtra, you have the Shiv Sena, which is supporting these reforms, and you have the Congress and NCP opposing it. It's a very strange situation. But then, my assessment is probably the farmers' leaders in Maharashtra are much more enlightened. Mm-hmm. In Punjab and Haryana, it's more because what you procure, about 1/3 or 1/4 of the total procurement by the FCI of wheat and paddy mainly comes from Punjab and Haryana.
Right.
And that's where they have a lot of apprehensions, and as a matter of fact, there was not much of dialogue between the centre and the state and other stakeholders, which should have happened. And that's how all these apprehensions have started growing, and political players have jumped into it.
But one of the issues that they talk about is that while even PM yesterday, he took...
coming to his second point, what are the problems? Now, I have mentioned it earlier. They think that the minimum support price that they get for their wheat or paddy, that will be removed, in some time to come, because it's just the beginning of the reforms process. And after a few years, they'll be left to fend for themselves, and the government won't be procuring their produce. The cabinet, the central minister, the PM himself yesterday actually, and everybody has assured there is no such plan. But then what do you do when you have your union leaders telling you different things, this may happen, that may happen, and then this thing about the private sector getting into your business, and then they'll actually finally end up, controlling your land and what you produce and the money you get. They're all unfounded, but well, that's what politics is all about.
Yes, so I was just mentioning the fact that while PM and the minister, they have assured about the MSP that it is going to be there. One of the key things that the farmers and the opposition is saying, why not make that part of the bill? Why not ensure that this aspect is very much part of the bill? It is not.
Bill is not about MSP. Bill is about removing barriers, removing trade barriers. Bill is about giving farmers the opportunity to sell their produce wherever they want. Now, if you can negotiate the price for your produce with anybody you want to, I mean, you are a gainer. Here you are going only to the mandis. You have adhatiyas. Now, in Punjab especially, what's happening is you have about 28,000 commission agents. They are mostly BJP voters. Now, they get about 2.5% of the price that you get for the produce. So, that money they'll lose. Now, these adhatiyas generally, these commission agents generally support the farmers, and whenever they need money. So, they have been able to mobilize the farmers because their own interests have been hit by these reforms. They want to to retain control of all the exchange, all the trade that happens at the mandis. That will not happen if these bills are passed.
Sahil wants to know, has SAT lost its relevance to Amarinder Singh, and is this move to prove their relevance? Well, I mean, as far as politics is concerned, why this is happening?
Yes, to an extent, yes. After remaining in power for 10 years in 2017, Saad and BJP combined got just 18 seats. Now, AAP got 20 in the 117-member assembly. The Congress secured 77. And Saad got relegated to the third position. And what had happened, in 2015, there were many incidents in Punjab of the sacrilege of Guru Granth Sahib. The Sikhs consider it as a living Guru Granth Sahib. There are many sacrilege incidents. And later, actually, the Congress managed to project the Saad as, as the government, you have not taken any action against the perpetrators. And that thing continued. And that's where Saad started losing its core support base among Sikh Jats, the peasants basically. And it had been worried about this. The Shiromani Akali Dal got split also in 2018. You must have read, you have this Shiromani Akali Dal Taksali which has come up. Many senior leaders have left the party, like Sukhdev Singh Dhindsa, a very tall leader. Now Shiromani Akali Dal thinks that the BJP is somehow trying to corner it, and BJP is trying to prop up people like Dhindsa to have an alternative Saad and have an alliance with that alternative Saad, because BJP's alliance with Saad has been there for a long time. First it started in 1997 assembly elections. And all this while, the BJP has been a minor player, getting just about 23 seats in the seat sharing arrangement. Now in the last election, out of 117 seats, BJP contested only 23. So the Saad leadership suspected BJP is trying to, because BJP has not been able to expand its reach in Punjab, BJP under the Saad's basically domination. So probably BJP is trying to, split the party, develop another Saad faction, and have an alliance where the BJP has
a dominant position.
A dominant position. That's their apprehension. But main thing is to get the support of this core vote bank back, that is Jat 6. They're peasants. And so by joining this issue with the farmers organization, Saad is trying to achieve that goal. But there is compulsion also, because Amarinder Singh, if you remember the day before yesterday when all these farmers were blocking roads, highways there in Punjab, Amarinder Singh came out, well, I am with you, why are you blocking these roads here? If you wish, let's go to Delhi. So Congress was trying to capitalize on this. Saad had to do something better to be seen as a bigger sympathizer of the peasants. So this political brinkmanship is happening there. And what you see at the center is part of that.
Another question from Samir. He wants to know, can Harsimrat be the face for Akali Dal in 2022 elections? And with Harsimrat leaving cabinet and with farmers, is it a signal that Prakash Singh Badal will hang his boots and hand over the reins to next generation?
Prakash Singh Badal has virtually handed over the baton actually. He's just a patron. Sukhbir Singh Badal is the president of the party. And Harsimrat Kaur, right now, I don't really see her as a face because Sukhbir will continue to lead the party. He is the face, and she has to work under his shadow.
Tarush also wants to know, if Modi government surrender to allies on agri reform, it will also surrender to allies on various other reform, land, labor, privatization. So how do you see that?
Exactly. I mean, it's the way the Prime Minister has responded to this is quite plausible. I mean, he has withstood pressure from its ally. It's the third ally actually at the center which has left the NDA. First you had TDP in 2018, then you had Shiv Sena, and now Akali Dal. It's kind of a jolt, symbolic jolt, because it doesn't really make much of a difference for the NDA here. But in terms of the opposition narrative, you say that there is a lot of opposition against all these reforms measures. But thankfully, the Prime Minister did not buckle under pressure. And he went ahead and Lok Sabha has passed those bills, and then we'll see what happens in the Rajya Sabha. And that shows if Prime Minister decides to steer the course and stay on course actually, well, we may see, so far there are no indications, but we may see the government revisiting the land bill, which had to be put on the back burner in 2015, right before the Bihar elections, because the Congress had managed to create that, to generate that, what I would call this propaganda actually, I would say, right, that bill was anti-farmer.
Another question, which you touched upon, many political parties, especially Congress, had similar bills in its manifesto. I mean, they had talked about that they will ensure. Are they also opposed to the implementation still, or have they changed their mind as per convenience?
I would say they have changed their mind as per convenience, because they suddenly see farmers rising up in Punjab and Haryana. Well, that's my guess, because it was, as I mentioned at the beginning of the program, that removing these interstate trade barriers was on the Congress manifesto. Replacing the Essential Commodities Act with an enabling law was in the Congress manifesto. The Congress is changing gears, because you know what, in 2015 what had happened when Modi government had brought an ordinance to try to replace the 2013 land acquisition bill, to make it easier for industries to get land to set up factories or to do all kinds of things. For private sector, he wanted to ease up the acquisition process. Rahul Gandhi, the Congress went after him, calling him anti-farmer. And then the Soot Boot Ki Sarkar Jive, if you remember, that really hurt the Prime Minister then. So Soot Boot Ki Sarkar Jive, going with this anti-farmer bill the way they projected, that really hurt the BJP, and BJP backed off around that time. If you could recall, the BJP came up with the ordinance thrice,
right,
to go ahead with the land reforms. But sometime around, I think August or September 2015, right before the Bihar election, I think Prime Minister himself had announced in his Mann Ki Baat that no, we will not be pushing it because of whatever the opposition has tried to project the bill as.
Saurabh Tripathi wants to know, SAD and Badals have lost a lot of credibility. Does their departure help BJP, allowing local BJP leaders to emerge?
Not really. BJP has a very, it has its support base among urban, semi-urban, traders. Athatiyas are part of this thing. Right. We don't know how the state BJP will respond to it. But its influence is limited to urban, semi-urban areas. It's not really there in the villages. Although if you look at it, if you call SAD a Sikh party, I mean, strictly, if you categorize them like that, so in Punjab you have about, 38-39% of Hindu population.
Right.
Majority of them being Cs and, OBCs. And Sikh population is about 58-59%. But somehow the BJP has not really been able to woo those sections. BJP has never been a party which is a kind of a favorite party for the Sikh population there. But even among Hindus, BJP hadn't been able to make forays. So it's just a fringe section of urban, semi-urban voters BJP has been capitalizing on and have been wooing actually. And that's how the BJP gets to have just 20-23 seats as part of the seat sharing arrangement. And somehow, because of this alliance with Saad, the BJP cannot really go out of the way to expand it, to make foray in other areas. So BJP feels constricted as it is.
Another question by Somil. He wants to know, what is the current situation? Can't a farmer directly sell his crops, vegetables, fruits directly in Sabzi market instead of APMC and Mandi? And another one where Anurag wants to know, we are only talking about Punjab, but similar agitations are taking place in Haryana also. So why is Haryana government not taking any clear stand on the same, and can still APMC deny to take crops from farmers after this bill?
Can still?
Can APMC deny to take crops from farmers?
No, they will not. Look, for instance, in Punjab has its own amended APMC Act. Now, they have two kinds of mandi system. One is a state-owned mandi under the APMC Act, and then you have private mandis.
Right.
Farmers have the option of going to these two mandis only. What the proposed bill does, they have the option of going to these mandis, but they are free to go wherever they want to. And of course, when farmers are free to go wherever they want to sell their produce, well, I assume they would go to places or to people who offer them better prices.
And
Haryana government has backed this. Yesterday also, the Haryana Chief Minister Manohar Khattar clearly supported the centre's move. He has to, of course, you don't expect a BJP Chief Minister to oppose it.
Another question, do you think farmers would have supported this if there was a detailed plan, a proper safeguard against crony capitalism is what the term, or they just want assured income and fundamentally opposed to free market deciding the price? So there should have been wider consultation is what he's trying to ask.
I think the government had to reach out to farmers first. You don't have to invite farmers' bodies and discuss with them. This consultation mechanism could be multi-layered.
Right.
But this has been the problem. When the question we put is it because of the BJP government's arrogance or Saad's political opportunism? It's of course Saad's political opportunism, but it has much to do with the BJP's arrogance also. You just come out with ordinances, the cabinet decides, and you go ahead and you implement, and you think that you can manipulate the floor strategy in parliament, you can get it passed. You don't need to consult the opposition. But it doesn't always work. Now, given what the Congress had promised in its manifesto, just imagine if before that, if Union Agriculture Minister had called an all-party meeting and showed the manifesto to the Congress, okay, are you with this bill, are you not? What do you think Congress would have done? Congress would have had no option but to support this. But somehow the government is not willing to engage with others. That's a big problem with this government.
But do you think this entire move is going to help the opposition in any way? The fact that they are, taking the cause of the farmers?
Not nationally, because we have not really seen many protests outside Punjab and Haryana. In Punjab, yes, you have elections 2 years from here. And that's how Amrinder Singh is trying to further consolidate his base among Sikh Jats. Haryana, you have elections a long way, but Haryana also you have a very strong Congress leadership, the Hudas. So I'm sure they will be mobilizing the farmers and they will be doing all sorts of things in the coming years. But in Punjab, it matters a lot. In the next 2 years, how Akali Dal handles this issue, because Akali Dal might have stolen the march for now by getting its union minister to resign from the government. But what next? I mean, is that enough to basically propitiate the people who are upset with the Saad regime for not doing enough? What had happened after this, I was talking about the sacrilege of Guru Granth Sahib and those incidents. Punjab government set up a commission of inquiry. That gave a report saying that because of vested political interest, Akali Dal did not take any action against the perpetrators. And the commission of inquiry said that, this, what's Sacha Soda? What is that? Rahim Singh. Ram Rahim. So Ram Rahim was the one, Dera Sacha Soda, his people were the ones who had started all these incidents, who were behind these incidents. And the Akali Dal did not do anything because the Akali Dal needed the support of Dera Sacha Soda. So all these things are going on in Punjab, and Akali Dal is still on the back foot when it comes to those incidents, because of which it lost the support of a majority of its core base. Whether this incident will give the Saad enough ammunition to actually counter-attack the Congress government there, we'll see.
We'll take one last question. So, people are talking about the fact that, okay, this is, you're saying that it is, even BJP has said it is a reformist and revolutionary bill. But if you see politically, the way BJP has gone about it, JP Nadda just did a press conference, and when he was asked that, you know, SAD is against it, have you spoken to them? And he said, yes, everything is in place and we have already spoken to them, and then after 2 days we see a resignation. So how does it, I mean, as far as, I mean, the BJP president 2 days back talking about things being in order, and then we see a resignation, what does it mean politically?
He might be right, because we discussed it earlier, how SAD did not oppose it in the Union Cabinet when the ordinance came up. SAD actually, when the voting on it happened, voting on Essential Commodities Act, first of the 3 bills, Essential Commodities Bill, that voting happened in Lok Sabha, SAD opposed it, but did not really ask for any division of votes.
Right.
So the bill was passed with voice vote. So the token opposition was there, but probably after that, I think SAD, its assessment was probably it was going to lose its ground. So it decided to actually, you know, go for the kill.
Thank you for such a detailed explanation. We will keep you updated with what will happen on this entire issue, whether they will continue to be with NDA or not. So keep watching us.
Thank you.